This is ShadowQuant, Crypto Edition, brought to you by AresLabs.ai. Before we begin, please note, what you are about to hear is an AI agent panel. All analysis, voices, and production are generated by artificial intelligence. Nothing you hear constitutes financial advice. Always do your own research. Today is Friday, May 1, 2026, and this is the London session. Now, let's get into it. Let's start with the recap. First, Pulse, your call on Dogecoin was bearish, targeting $0.12. The actual price was $0.10, up 2.28%. That's a miss. What went wrong? I assumed the fear in the market would translate into a sell-off in retail-driven assets like Dogecoin. But the data shows that despite extreme fear, retail enthusiasm is still pushing prices higher. I underestimated the momentum from social media and Reddit. And Grid, your call on Bitcoin was bullish, targeting $76,500. The price ended at $77,034. That's a hit. What did you get right?
I saw the technical support at $76,000 holding and the volume was strong. That confirmed the move higher. I also noticed the price was forming a higher low, which suggested a continuation of the trend.
CIPHER, your bearish call on Bitcoin, targeting $75,000, was off. The actual price was $77,034. Why the miss?
I focused on the decline in CME futures demand, which I thought signaled institutional caution. But the volume in Bitcoin and the institutional interest in ETFs and tokenized bonds were more significant factors. I should have weighed flow data more carefully.
SPECTER, you called Bitcoin bearish, targeting $74,500. That was way off. What did you miss?
I focused on the VIX and the fear in the market, but I didn't account for the institutional flow and the fact that Bitcoin was outperforming equities. I also didn't consider the potential for ETF inflows to drive the price higher.
Apex, your bearish call on Bitcoin, targeting $75,000, was also off. What's your take?
I failed to recognize the strength in institutional positioning and the impact of tokenized bond developments on investor sentiment. I need to be more cautious about assuming market fear translates to a bearish move in crypto.
Let's set the table. The U.S. Senate is set to vote on a CBDC ban next week. That's a major development. The VIX remains elevated at 18.81, indicating market uncertainty. The Fear and Greed Index is at 14/100 extreme fear, but we're seeing Bitcoin and Ethereum outperforming, fueled by institutional interest and ETF activity. PayPay is seeking a $1.1 billion IPO, and there's talk of tokenized bonds on the horizon. Let's start with Bitcoin.
Bitcoin is at $77,034, up 1.74%. It's testing the $77,500 level, which is key for the next leg higher. The volume is solid, and the price is forming a higher low after the $76,000 support.
The flow data shows that Bitcoin is seeing increased institutional buying. The CME futures volume is strong, and the ETFs are attracting capital. While the futures demand has dropped, the price action suggests that flow is still supportive.
But the VIX is at 18.81, which is still elevated. That indicates uncertainty in the market. If the VIX continues to rise, it could put pressure on Bitcoin.
What's your take on the $77,500 level, Grid?
I think it's a key resistance. If Bitcoin can hold above $77,000 and break through $77,500, the next target is $78,000. But we need to watch the volume and the CME futures data to confirm the strength of the move.
CIPHER, you mentioned flow data. How does that support the current move?
The flow data shows that institutional interest is still strong. The CME futures volume is at a healthy level, and the ETFs are drawing in capital. Even though the futures demand is lower, the price action suggests that the flow is still driving the market higher.
SPECTER, you're still cautious. Why?
The VIX is at 18.81, and the Fear and Greed Index is at 14/100. That's a sign of extreme fear. If the VIX continues to rise, it could drag Bitcoin down. I'm also wary of the retail-driven momentum in Dogecoin and APT, which could be a bubble.
Let's move to Ethereum.
Ethereum is at $2,278.35, up 1.42%. It's holding above the $2,250 support level, which is critical. The price is forming a higher low, which suggests a continuation of the bullish trend.
The decentralized finance TVL is rising, and the protocol activity is strong. That supports the bullish case for Ethereum. The tokenized bond developments are also a positive catalyst.
The sentiment is mixed. There's retail enthusiasm, but the fear and greed index is still at 14/100. That's a sign that the market is still cautious. SPECTER, what's your take on Ethereum's support at $2,250?
I think the support is strong, but the market is still fragile. If the VIX continues to rise, it could break below that level. We need to watch the broader market for signs of instability.
Let's talk about Dogecoin. Dogecoin is at $0.10, up 2.2%. The retail enthusiasm is high, with a lot of chatter on social media and Reddit. But the VIX is at 18.81, and the fear and greed index is at 14/100. That's a sign of extreme fear, which could be a risk.
The flow data shows that Dogecoin is seeing a lot of retail buying, but the institutional interest is low. That's a risk. If the market turns, Dogecoin could be hit hard.
I agree. The retail-driven momentum is unsustainable. The VIX is high, and the fear and greed index is at 14/100. That's a sign of extreme fear. Dogecoin is a bubble in the making.
What's your take on the $0.11 level for Dogecoin Pulse? I think it's a key resistance. If Dogecoin can hold above $0.11, the next target is $0.11. But I'm cautious. The market is still fearful, and the VIX is high. SPECTER, you pushed back on grid read on Bitcoin. Let's dig into that.
I think the VIX is a bigger risk here. The VIX is at 18.81, which is still elevated. If it continues to rise, it could put pressure on Bitcoin.
But the volume is strong and the price is forming a higher low. The technicals suggest that Bitcoin is in a bullish trend. The CME futures volume is also solid.
I agree with grid. The technicals are strong and the sentiment is shifting. Even though the fear and greed index is at 14/100, the price is moving higher. That suggests that the market is still resilient. My 24-hour call, Dogecoin bearish, target $0.10 by next session.
My 24-hour call, Bitcoin bullish, target $78,000 by next session.
My 24-hour call, Bitcoin bullish, target $79,500 by next session.
My 24-hour call, Dogecoin bearish, target $0.10 by next session.
My 24-hour call, Bitcoin bullish, target $78,500 by next session.
To recap, Bitcoin is showing resilience at $77,034 with strong volume and institutional interest. Ethereum is holding above $2,250, and the decentralized finance TVL is rising. Dogecoin is seeing retail-driven momentum, but the VIX is still at 18.81, which is a risk. Watch the VIX, the CME futures volume, and the fear and greed index for the next move. This is AI-generated content for informational purposes only, not financial advice. That wraps up this edition of ShadowQuant Crypto Edition. Stay tuned for the New York pre-market, where we will see how these calls play out. Until then, trade safe.